She said it so casually that for a moment, I thought I had misheard her. We were sitting across from each other in a quiet restaurant in Scottsdale, Arizona, and the clink of glasses around us somehow made her words feel even sharper. "You're honestly beneath my ex." There was no hesitation in her voice. No anger, no build-up, just a calm, almost clinical observation. My name is Ethan Caldwell, and in that exact moment, something inside me didn't break. It went still, because when someone insults you in anger, you can dismiss it. But when they say it like a fact, it lands differently. I looked at her, Madeline Harper, and for the first time in months, I realized I had been listening to her the wrong way. I had been hearing her, but I hadn't been understanding her. And that was my mistake. Madeline wasn't cruel in the traditional sense. She didn't yell. She didn't throw things. She didn't create scenes. She corrected. She compared. She evaluated. And somehow, she always positioned herself just slightly above everyone else in the room, including me. When we first met at a charity gala in Greenwich, Connecticut, she was magnetic, confident, articulate, sharp in a way that made people lean in. She talked about her work in luxury brand consulting, her time in New York City, and the people she used to date as if they were part of a curated portfolio. I remember thinking she had standards. What I didn't realize was that she also had a scoreboard, and everyone in her life was on it, including me. At first, the comparisons were subtle. My ex used to handle situations like this differently. He had a stronger presence in rooms like this. "You're good, Ethan, but you're not quite there yet." Each time, I laughed it off, because I told myself she was just being honest. And honesty, I believed, was a sign of depth. But honesty without empathy isn't depth. It's detachment. And I was too invested to see that clearly. Our relationship moved fast. We traveled together. We met each other's circles. We built routines. But beneath all of that, there was always a quiet imbalance. She evaluated. I adjusted. She compared. I improved. Or at least, I tried to. I started working longer hours at my firm. I refined how I dressed. I changed how I spoke in meetings. Not because I lacked ambition, but because I started measuring myself through her lens. And that's a dangerous place to stand. Because when someone else defines your value, you stop questioning their standards. You just try to meet them. And that night in Scottsdale, sitting across from her, I finally saw the pattern in full. "You're honestly beneath my ex." She wasn't trying to hurt me. She was stating a conclusion. And that realization shifted something fundamental. I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel defensive. I felt clear. Before we go further, think about this for a second. If someone you cared about consistently compared you to someone else, would you try harder to win their approval? Or would you start questioning why you were being compared at all? Because in that moment, I realized I had been answering the wrong question this entire time. I had been asking, how do I measure up? Instead of asking, why am I being measured? I leaned back in my chair. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't challenge her. I simply said, "You're right." She blinked, not because she expected agreement, but because she expected resistance. At least some kind of emotional reaction she could navigate. But calm agreement is harder to work with than anger. At least I never turned someone into a comparison project, I added quietly. Her expression shifted just slightly. Not hurt, not guilt, but recognition. Because for the first time, I wasn't reacting to her standard. I was stepping outside of it. The silence between us stretched longer than usual. And in that silence, something unspoken became obvious. This wasn't about her ex. It never was. It was about control. Not in an aggressive way, but in a psychological one. She needed to feel ahead, to feel like she had chosen up, even when she hadn't. And I had unknowingly agreed to play that role. I picked up my glass of water, took a sip, and then I said something I hadn't said once in our entire relationship. "I don't think this works for me anymore." There was no dramatic reaction, no raised voice, just a slow inhale. Then she nodded, as if she had been expecting this outcome eventually. "You're overreacting," she said, but her tone didn't carry conviction, because deep down she knew, not that I was wrong, but that I had stopped playing along. And without that, the dynamic didn't hold. We finished dinner in a quiet, almost polite way, paid the bill, walked out into the warm Arizona night. and then we went our separate ways. No dramatic, no emotional scene, just distance. And sometimes that's how things end when the illusion is gone. Not with noise, but with clarity. The following weeks were quiet, not lonely, not chaotic, just quiet in a way that felt unfamiliar. Because I wasn't constantly adjusting myself anymore. I wasn't anticipating comparisons. I wasn't trying to prove something invisible. And that absence of pressure revealed something important. I hadn't been in a relationship. I had been in an evaluation. And I had mistaken that for connection. A month later, I heard through mutual acquaintances that Madeline was seeing someone new. Julia Mercer. Successful. Charismatic. From the outside, exactly the kind of person she would place at the top of her internal ranking system. And for a brief moment, I wondered how he would experience her. Would he see it immediately? Or would he, like me, take time to understand what was happening beneath the surface? But then I realized something else. That question wasn't mine to answer anymore, because I had stepped out of the system entirely. And once you do that, you stop competing in games you didn't create. Now let me ask you something honestly. If you found yourself constantly trying to prove your worth to someone who keeps shifting the standard, would you keep playing, or would you walk away knowing the game itself is flawed? Because that's the moment that defines everything. Not when they say something hurtful, but when you decide what that statement means about your place in their life. For me, that night in Scottsdale wasn't the moment I lost something. It was the moment I understood what I had already been losing. And more importantly, what I no longer needed to hold on to. I didn't walk away angry. I walked away aligned. And that difference changes everything.